I put a little current starve on this, and basically this is just a knob that does what's called a current divide, and it lessens the amount of power that's going through the unit.
I mean, I was unemployed and I had all this cool like synth gear, and like I sold it all just to pay the bills, and I got this dinky little Casio keyboard.
This is a stylophone. This is like the digital version of an instrument that was actually made in the 60s.
I'm not gonna get all into it and edit it forever on a computer or do MIDI or anything. It's just gonna be real simple and sort of a statement against like how it's cool to be a gearhead, and hardware is so much cooler than software and all this. Who fucking cares? It's bullshit. Just make music.
So this is like the reboot of it. So it has all these really cheesy like digital samples, right? It's got these really stupid scratching samples.
I would say tweaking and tampering the current pathways of electricity via an instrument or an analog instrument, and kind of rerouting those pathways to create a new secret sound.
And I think they had a beatboxer. One, two.
I saw like, I could make music out of anything. Like before I wanted more and more better, expensive gear, and now I'm like the other direction, like capturing something that maybe like people haven't thought of, have discounted, and making it powerful.
So as I do that, all these goofy sounds then start to change. So I make them go really low, and then their character starts to really be altered.
And now, what if I could make, use circuit bending to learn about electronics and modify it? And now the music has so much more capabilities, as well as starting from this different place.
I get it really low. So for me, this stylophone is like terrible by itself, and it's really good. The quality after it's circuit bent, the quality of the sounds it makes after it's been messed with is like far greater.
Circuit bending's like this.
Circuit bending is engineering.
Circuit bending is not an art.
Re-engineering, I guess, even, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's definitely a piece of an art form. It's something that you do to create art. Although the instruments you create are works of art in and of themselves, the ultimate goal of the circuit bend is to eventually incorporate that into music in some way. So it's like a work of art that you're making for a work of art.
There are trends, like things that the circuit might do. And so, if anything, those would be like the hypotheses. But you never really know which ones you're gonna get out of the circuit. And yeah, I'd like to do it with a little bit more science.
So you get the toy, you open the toy up, and once you look at the circuit board, you kind of get a general idea of what's going on inside of it. But you don't really know, like, oh, I'm going to be able to put a probe on this end and probe on this one with a potentiometer in the middle, and I hypothesize that it's going to make a logarithmic swirl. That just is not the case. So there really is no way to put a hypothesis together, and in order to be a science, you need to do that.
That's definitely not a science. I guess it's an art, a folk art, or a artistic practice, I guess. But, see, you get the fucking camera in my face now.
It's a craft, it's a hobby, it's fun, it's a great way to use your time.
Like it's, obviously the intersection between all those things. And because we're all equipped with different skills from all of those areas, depending on our own experiences and desires and visions, we all approach it from a different way. It's interdisciplinary, that's what I'd call it.
So circuit bending is a way that you take old electronics, you pull them apart, you take out the circuit board, you dissect the circuit board, and then you find a way to manipulate the current state of the circuit board so that you can create a new sound that wasn't originally intended for what you're working on.
I like to use stuff that kind of just been discarded because, I don't know, I like it. It has kind of like a history to it. You know, it's kind of like giving a new life to something that was never designed to have much of a life to begin with.
Just everything about it, man, the way you do it and the aesthetic, how these things look. Like, why does your toy have a bunch of knobs on it, you know? What's that thing doing?
Zoom puts these things out like every year. It's like a big moneymaker for them, and they're terrible. they're for what it's designed to do. It's not really meant to be something that is high quality. It's meant to sell to basically like teenage boys so they could emulate whatever Guitar Hero is popular at the time, and then, you know, throw it away in a couple years.
In a sense, like with electronic music, like everything is a toy with a bunch of knobs, but you could be that guy with like the custom dirty hairy handgun. That's what I want. That's what we're making here. It's like we're making some shit that like James Bond PPK, like, oh, only one man I know uses this.
I like that the connection with the object and the history of the objects, right? Because it's not just something that gets made. Someone put their life and effort into making this, right? This stuff's made in factories. The factories, you know, have people that work in them, and a lot of the conditions are really terrible, right? So someone probably was injured making this thing, right? And here we are just chucking it away, going like, screw that Zoom 505. It's like, no, don't screw that Zoom 505. Someone's mom, like, probably, you know, developed leukemia making that. There's value in that.
Unscrewing the thing when the screws come off. Here. Look at that, dude. That's weird. If it runs off of 9 volts, I don't have any other power supplies that have 9 volt. So this thing isn't going to do anything. Might be another salvage job.
There's a connection with real human life and people, and I feel like I want to honor that in some way, you know? And to some extent, it's like I feel sorry for them. I kind of identify with, like, you know, the stuff that's just trashed, you know? Like, oh, no one wants this crap, but it's like not crap. It's actually pretty good. You just got to figure out how to work with it.
This circuit bending documentary follows 3 different artists and myself at our different stages of circuit bending. The first one is David Caballo, who teamed up with me on this documentary, and we kind of worked side by side while I was filming and educating myself on the process from scratch to where we are today. He was also that. He had a little bit of experience, but pretty much on the level with me in terms of our knowledge base of electrical engineering.
Which I found a cool bend, which changed the timbre of the sound. It was a piano sound, and then it got a little more, I'd say raspy, or maybe like a saw wave, like kind of tremolo.
It's all melted together.
So I was really excited, discovered a bend, and kept on going and shorted it. Fucking thing's dead. And I didn't have such luck with my other toy either, which worked fine. But when I busted it open, it refused to work.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
What happened, Caballo?
Why don't you use that for the documentary, huh?
And then there's Joe Cantrell, who is above and beyond pretty much anyone that I've met in terms of talking to them about how these things work.
But let me see what we got here, and maybe we can do some bends. All right, we got a Tonka toy. That's good.
He does circuit bending, but circuit bending is just one piece of his much bigger puzzle.
Oh, I got a speak and read.
Nice.
Oh, there's this chorus pedal. Has some switches on it. That's been bent. This thing, which I think used to be an octave pedal, I put it in a different box. I got this, the Speak and Math.
just something he utilizes when he needs to do it in order to manipulate a piece of equipment to get it to where it needs to be so that he can incorporate it in whatever art project that he's working on. So it's in his toolbox.
These are the successors to the original Speak and Spell. I should probably contact Sarah Rollins.
And then the third guy is Travis Varga. Travis had no idea what it was. I picked him up. I took him to a thrift store. I had him pick out a toy. And then I brought him back to the workshop here. I walked him through step by step what the whole process was.
This was engaging for me because I caught myself more focused with taking it apart, with trying different aspects out of the wiring. I learned a lot just from doing like a simple little Fisher-Price keyboard, taking it apart and putting it back together again. And it just reemphasizes that even in this digital age, a lot of the digital devices are still wired together with still just solder and speaker wiring. Just doing stuff with your hands again and stuff like that is like, it's refreshing.
So in this documentary, you're going to see me working side by side with David, our trials and tribulations as we started to dig into the world of circuit bending. You're going to see all kinds of weird toys. You're going to see the inside of all kinds of electronics. You're going to hear all kinds of weird noises. And hopefully you come out with a desire to pursue this on your own, and also with a little bit of education in terms of what circuitry does, at least a little more than you had before you started watching this.
We know so little about electricity, and it's everywhere. It's this thing that gives us all these modern conveniences and enables our art. And I just thought, I want to know more about this and have that inform my art and what I want to do.
Back in the day, the circuit bending sort of scene just kind of got associated with, well, let's just say that it was a scene that valued not taking yourself too seriously, which is fine. But at that time, I wanted to take myself seriously. All right, hey, word zap level 1. I was bothered by that as a limitation. If I told people that, like, oh yeah, I do circuit bending, they're gonna have an instant image of what I do that is probably going to be really different than what I actually, what actually comes out of the speakers. There's, holy shit, I did it.
When a friend brought this idea of circuit bending into my life, I thought it was absolutely ludicrous. So of course I was fascinated by it. And as I dug deeper and deeper into it, I was looking around on the internet and I saw a free workshop that was available at a local art museum in San Diego. So I decided to take the class, and the instructor had us bend an FM radio. After doing the real simple bend and taking the class, it was taught in such a way that I was hooked right away.
Transistor. That's probably the op amp, dude. We might be in good business over here.
I like sort of like the DIY aspect of you're planning out your curriculum and what you want to learn from circuit bending. So, I found out about common things that are done.
See where that transistor is. These 3 up here. I don't want to mess with those.
One thing I learned early on was that pitch is controlled by resistors. And so, if you increase the resistance on that part of the circuit, then you'll lower the pitch because less electricity is flowing through and it's lower energy. And so that's kind of like a pretty interesting piece of knowledge. If like me making music, pitch is a huge part of what I do, and here's a way that we've been controlling it like for so long, and fuck, how could you not incorporate that? How could you not learn that and want to become better through that?
So here's that's an on-off switch. There we go. Solve it. Level. I kind of stopped doing it, and I got in. That's when I got more into doing computer stuff, where I can like, well, I can just control everything. And that's the only bend I've done on it. Let's see where the output is, and it's less associated with this kind of goofy circus kind of vibe. Not that there's anything wrong with that, really. Put some reverb in there. Oh, yeah, that's speak and spell in a tunnel. This little chorus thing is pretty cool. I basically just circuit bent this, and it becomes a kind of an oscillator. So there we go. It's pretty rockin'.
Definitely one of the best things about circuit bending is the fact that I now feel educated about how electronics work, where before it hand me a TV remote and I could open that thing up and I honestly would have no idea what's going on inside of that thing. It just looks like this little alien city that you're looking at from above that does all kinds of real handy things.
All right, so that's that thing. So there it is, without the octave pedal. It's kind of a lot less interesting. Yeah.
Woo! Gotta try that one. Ow! Keep on touching electricity.
You are electricity, bro.
That's a good point.
I think that's kind of how my fascination with junked gear, what that grew out of, was kind of not really having much more of a choice. Oh, that's making a sound. And once you start messing with things and saying like, hey, this is really interesting, I want to be able to kind of control what my things do and not have it be absolutely destroyed. Can you imagine if there were code built into this thing, for example, you know, as soon as you opened it, unless you had some kind of factory authorization, it would just kill itself. Right? It'd be like, oh, wow, let's see what this bend does. Oh, it's on fire. Okay, no, it's dead now. All right. Oh, a siren-y sound. Once you start messing with stuff and enjoying it and making it your own, you know, if you buy a piece of software or even a piece of hardware where the company doesn't allow you to do it, right? Suddenly, your opinion of that kind of stuff changes as well. Maybe people, you know, can start thinking about these ideas of like, who owns the thing that you're messing with? Who owns the product that you just bought? Is it you? Because if it's not, then maybe that's a problem.
Going thrifting in a nicer part of town, hopefully collecting some nice goods that other people overlooked and are too good for.
The hunt is interesting because just like any time you go to a thrift store, you have no idea what you're going to find.
Nothing. It's really amazing, like how many records got made. Okay, let's see here. So this is my life here. 3, 4, 6, 0, 8. Harp, skip, and jump. All right.
Hunting is even like the big part of it, like where to hit, right? Like you got to hit the spot that people don't go to, and you have to look at like kind of like what toys you're into, and you don't want something that's too simple because it's not worth, you know, messing around with, and you don't want something that's too complex because then you can't break it open and understand it.
First, we hit up some thrift stores, found a couple cool gadgets to test this theory of bending the circuits to get a whole new sound. We got a couple things.
It is good to do a little research before you do, because there are other people out there that are circuit bending, and a lot of these toys were really mass produced. So if you have to make the decision of getting one toy or another, it's good to have a little bit of knowledge in terms of, oh, I should buy this one because I know for a fact that this one has a few bends on it. Or you could just go trailblazing and decide to find one that no one has ever done before and open it up and experience for yourself.
Actually, you know what I'll do is I'll just like fast forward this whole thing in the right way onto the new reel. It's backwards. Well, I know it's on this reel anyway.
You know, in this process, I guess, it seems a little ham-fisted, but you know, we're going for it, and that's how it's going to happen. We're going to hunt for something, and then, you know, it's going to be traditional circuit bending, really.
Going to shop for children's toys that make noise in one way or another is a pretty fun experience. So, you know, you just walk into your store, you look around, you dig, you look in places that you probably wouldn't normally look, spend a couple bucks and come home with some treasures that you're gonna tear apart.
I respect like this random nature of circuit bending, and that's cool, you know. When everything's so defined and there's so much intent to creating, sometimes the fun is lost. So I think that's good to have like a randomized fun element of it, but eventually, like, you know, I want to gain knowledge about it and to actually realize like what's happening in the circuit, so that I can build my own circuits and modify anything I want and create my own instruments.
Sometimes you find these things that still have someone's messages from like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this weird little slice into someone's life.
So you're gonna spend 10 to 20 bucks at the thrift store on toys that you're gonna tear apart. Half of them are probably gonna be trashed by the time you're done with them, and they're not gonna work.
We had like a ton of circuit bent things, and we're controlling them via this weird genetic algorithm. See how fast I'm doing this? If you get a computer to do this like at 1,000 times a second, it becomes something completely different. So this is actually going to a switch, and I had this thing called a Miditron, and you can hook it up to MIDI. I had this connected to a bunch of relays, and relays are electrically controlled switches. So I could basically switch this on and off.
I think one thing that's going to help this project move forward is that we have this dedicated space.
So whether you have, you know, a corner of your living room or a garage or a dedicated room even that you could have as a workshop, it's a great place to store all the tools on your workbench and have access to all the different components that you're going to need and store any sort of toys that you want.
And so we got this workshop set up. It's officially a workshop because we have a shop light.
Or I would tend to spend most of the time making the software to play music and not actually practicing in that software. So it becomes, or it became kind of boring for me in a way.
Then we got the setup here. We got a soldering iron at the station with the controllable voltage so you don't burn out the circuit.
The soldering iron is something that you're going to use to not only desolder things, but to solder all your components together. You're going to want to have a couple different tips available for yourself because there's a few different situations that you're going to run into when it comes to soldering. Mainly you want one that's small because most of the components are small, so you're going to want a nice small soldering tip to go on your soldering gun.
A little cleaner for the tip, which is better than using the sponge it came with. These helping hands, so you can see what you're soldering or probing.
So it holds the thing that you're trying to solder. It can hold the wires for you. And it gives you like 4 or 5 extra hands so that you can go in and put the soldering iron in it. And most of them have a magnifying glass in it, so you can get a very good look at what you're trying to solder.
The most important tools would have to be the test leads or probes. So we have these nails here to touch the leads and create a bridge. And eventually, if we find that does something, then we can connect a component in the middle. These are a little bit big. The problem with that is if you're gonna put this on a lead, it might touch the one next to it and create a short.
So I have a lot of junk sitting around, and I got tired of having working in the computer and having that much control. So, and plus, I spend all day in the computer doing work and doing stuff that I don't want to do necessarily. And the last thing I want to do when I'm like I want to feel creative is like going back and looking at a glowing rectangle.
So if you have something like a keyboard and you're already using up 2 hands probing out your leads, it's near impossible to get a sound. You need a sound to hear before you modify it. Let's try to get one of these clipped on so you have one hand free to play the note and the other one to test.
Test probe, a physical device used to connect electronic test equipment to a device under test. Test probes range from very simple, robust devices to complex probes that are sophisticated, expensive, and fragile. A test probe is often supplied as a test lead, which includes the probe, cable, and terminating connector.
You gotta do some weird Asian chopstick shit like this where you're like pressing the key and then probing out leads going do 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 do.
I went back to using just like hardware, and I have not turned back. So, and I only use stuff that I find that or is used or is broken or obsolete. So stuff that I find at garage sales.
Last but not least, smoke extractor is safety first.
So when you are soldering, you're also going to want something that ventilates the air. I mean, a fan works to be able to blow it out of there, and of course you're going to want ventilation in the space that you're in.
Yeah, I don't want to inhale those fumes and cause any reproductive harm. No, we're not doing that.
I like this was like, a toy flip phone. The flip part has since come off. So that'll give you an idea of the era from which this toy originated. Sometimes when you bend things, they'll start working in really weird ways. And I found that out like after I bent this, I really liked the way it sounded. And then I left the batteries in there. The next time I saw it, like the batteries had completely leaked everywhere. So this thing, the bend that's involved in this, like absolutely just destroys batteries. Yeah.
Those are the 2 processors that are covered up in big black blobs. Well, black blobs, some kind of circuit that they protect from like damage or like people copying their shit. I guess first things first, mark off. Think of where the power is, so don't fuck with these. This is all surface. These 2 come out of the switch. As long as I don't touch these 2 guys, I'm good.
Says there's so many screws that hold these things together, so it takes a little bit of time. You got to unscrew them. Once you get them unscrewed, that reveals your circuit board. Once your circuit board is in the open, you need to find your probes, and you start to probe the circuit board while you're activating whatever sound that it does. So you start to probe your circuit board while you're activating the sound, and as you're probing while the sound is activated, eventually when you put 2 probes in a spot while the sound is activated, you're going to manipulate the sound in some way. And then you can solder those 2 points together and just put a cable from one end to the other to continue doing whatever happens when you probe those 2 points. Or in the middle of that one wire, you can put whatever electrical component you want that manipulates the sound even further. A potentiometer is a popular one. So you find a potentiometer that's right for the situation, and then you can turn the dial back and forth to either increase or decrease the amount of electricity that's going through that one point.
So let's see what's going on here. I have a capacitor that I have placed on here, and the speaker's there. but it does not look like the capacitor is doing its job anymore. So let's see, what is the value of this capacitor? It is 100 microfarads.
Capacitor, a device that stores electrical energy in an electric field. The physical form and construction of practical capacitors vary widely, and many types of capacitors are in common use. Capacitors are widely used to block direct current while allowing alternating current to pass, smooth the output of power supplies, and tune radios to a particular frequency.
There's a little resistor in there too. Let's see what happens when we pull that resistor out. There's a resistor on here, and I wonder what happens. I wonder what happens if we get rid of this resistor.
Let's play. No, let's not play. Let's. This is also power, so I'm gonna stay away from that. I guess everything else is cool. Mic is over here. Mic is up there. Two switches are up here. What's his name? There's a cap here. You would mess with this capacitor.
Super singing! So now the resistor is out of the mix. Wow. Who knew? This thing's pretty chatty. Hey, buddy. Information? Can I help you? Can I help you? Oh, this is my new favorite thing. He's never done this before. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Certainly glad I got rid of that little resistor. So you put it back and it'll, yeah, see, it stops. Freaking out.
You look at the circuit and you look at the traces and you try to trace sort of the flow of where everything's going, and it's easy to see that, you know, you either have a chip, a CPU, or it's covered up in the black blob, and then sometimes you have another second chip like a analog to digital converter or something. And we got to hear this multiple times today. And so these are hot points where audio is being changed, and so you might connect one of those points and make an extra connection to like a discrete part like a capacitor or a resistor, and so you're making this jump to sort of affect a different change. So that's the switch. That's all I seem to do is turn shit off.
In doing this documentary, I myself decided to dig into it more and more as I was working with the other artists that are featured in this film. And really, it's become a part of my day-to-day practice. Whether I'm composing something inside of a DAW or just messing around with instruments and trying to make unique sounds to sample, it really is just a great and unique way to create something that it really does individualize whatever you're trying to create.
So what I'm doing is I'm bypassing the, there's a resistor in there that's set to a fixed amount. When I took it out, it did that craziness, which is awesome. I did an awesome craziness. But I'm curious as to whether changing the value of that resistor using a potentiometer, which is basically a variable resistor, will give us some other interesting effects.
Potentiometer, a 3-terminal resistor with a sliding or rotating contact that forms an adjustable voltage divider. Potentiometers are commonly used to control electrical devices such as volume controls on audio equipment.
So I'm gonna change it to, that was a 5K resistor, which is a pretty median value, and I'm gonna change it to higher resistance. Oh, there's 100K. So this is a way higher value of resistance, and we'll see what that does. So now I can kind of control it.
And that's the randomized sort of part of it. You might be, giving the circuit too much power. It might be underpowered, and so you get a lot of really weird effects. It's doing something it's not intended to do. The idea is to sort of gain knowledge from that and then to have intent and knowledge and to do something to create something like that. Reverse engineering to engineer, I suppose. We're gonna try to have fun in the lab doing these bends, but at the same time, we're gonna try to pair that with some real learning.
While you're creating something, you're also getting an education on how the electrical components react with the circuit board when you decide to put them in the middle of a bend. So whether you're using a capacitor or a potentiometer, when you find a bend, you're learning what that is doing to an electrical signal.
Put the resistor back on. So the next thing, I'm really curious as to whether the actual contact with human fingers is affecting what's going on here. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be having quite the same effect. I can just glue it in there and then just cut out some space here maybe. Wow. So two things. Clearly the resistor is controlling the speed, or helping to control the speed. So the higher the resistance value, the faster it's going to go. That's why this thing, when I turn it up, suddenly it goes really fast, right? And then I can crank it down, and it'll repeat. Right? So that's that thing, just playing itself incredibly fast, and then you just start turning it down and it gets slower. But it's still connected. So when I disconnect it, then it's got no relation to whatever limit of speed. It starts going slower and slower and slower and slower. Which of course is awesome. So I'd like to have both of these options in here.
It really is harmless. You're not going to electrocute yourself. It's DC power. Unless you're working on something that is plugged into the wall, then you're in danger zone. But, if it's just one or two AA batteries, it's not going to hurt you.
I'm looking for some switches. It's a momentary. That's not what I want. I'm looking for a single pole. That might work.
Switch, an electrical component that can disconnect or connect the conducting path in an electrical circuit, interrupting the electric current or diverting it from one conductor to another. When a pair of contacts is touching, current can pass between them, while when the contacts are separated, no current can flow.
This is kind of big too. I'm going to put the potentiometer in there backwards and point it out the back where the speaker used to be. So I'm going to need to drill a hole. Okay, cool. So this is mounted in there. Good.
The toy is a Phonics frog pond that I bought from someone's garage on Craigslist. And so, you know, speak and spells, that sort of thing. They're older, and a lot of people have already bent them and taken them off the market. So now we have the new versions of stuff like Leapfrog Phonics. So this is the Phonics frog pond, or what have you.
Try pressing any letter. R, 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 R,
You know, you're constantly like pushing this, then you shouldn't have to do that. And then the idea of like building a mod would be like building like an LFO circuit that would oscillate, that would just keep on pressing it on and off, so you wouldn't have to do it, but you get a fucking wave to do it for you.
It was cool. Right away, I kind of found, you know, a couple of different triggers on the keyboard panels, and just it was interesting to see how, because I had never done something like this. You take it apart and you put it back together a different way, and you can kind of make a whole new instrument.
Now where to put the switch? This is a kind of a bulky switch. Yep. So the speaker outs are good.
When I first opened up Phonics Frog Pond, I had discovered like a pitch bend for like the alphabet mode, and I got really excited because it sounded really weird.
Look at this haul. This is all the wire I need and more. Yummers!
And I mainly went out from the main CPU, because I figured that's where the action was going on, and tried to stay away from what looked like power leads. And you know, I would just kind of go around to other resistors. So because of that pitch controlling resistor that I found, I was like, yeah, you know, resistors are probably a good bet.
Resistor, a two-terminal electrical component that implements electrical resistance as a circuit element. Used to reduce current flow, adjust signal levels, divide voltages, and terminate transmission lines, among other uses. Resistors are common elements of electrical networks and electronic circuits, and are ubiquitous in electronic equipment.
And so each one of these bends is off of the main CPU and connected to some other separate resistor.
You play music.
Basically took it apart and rerouted some wiring inside of it on the motherboard panel, I guess I'd call it. And there's a bunch of different inputs that the speaker wire can go into, and you basically are just rerouting the speaker wires until you hit something that gives you a sound or gives you a warping of a current sound.
So you might get lucky and find a circuit board that has 5 or 10 bends even on the one circuit board. And once you have them all mapped out and kind of loosely wired in, then you can go in and solder everything together, make it nice and tight. And you can either try and put everything back inside its original box, or you can design a new box with the circuit board and all your dials, knobs, and switches inside of it as well.
I want it to fucking work, and I want it right now. Instead of being like, okay, let's actually think about what the best way to actually implement this is, and go ahead and do that. Like, nope. What's the fastest, the fastest, cheapest way I can do it to make it work right now? Part of the thing about circuit bending too is like, you know, the more patience you have, the better your circuit bend is going to be. I tend to have very little patience. I'm like, yes, I want it to be done so I can fucking use it, you know? And so you do it, and it's like, it works, but it's really slapdash, and it like breaks really easy. Right. Like this one.
So it was cool. We ended up with like a little new knob, and I could just do a couple little filtering resonance effects with one of the keys on the board. So that was kind of the whole from start to finish, and now I have a little instrument souvenir that I can mess around with and just know that I kind of created a new instrument off something that already was in existence. It's pretty cool. Very cool experience.
So one of the bends that I did that's probably one of my more favorite was definitely the pink microphone. I mean, it had maybe 5 bends on it on a very small space. I mean, I had circuit boards that were like this big that I didn't find anything on, and this was a circuit board about this big, and I kept finding bends. It was really neat to go in and to be able to put multiple switches in these places and solder 1 or 2 points to different places and really make some really grimy, nasty sounds that I really do enjoy.
So I think it was part of like a Tonka toy truck set, so you can have these like impact wrench sound. Oh, that's not impact, I guess this is. There we go. There's the impact wrench. And like a little horn. Like a voice that's not working. Crank it up. Oh, there's the timing, so I can make it really fast. Right, suddenly it's like pew pew pew. And I added a jack to it as well. A lot of these things are designed, we played with little toy sets with little tiny speakers. When you plug them into actual speakers, they're like, they sound different than you would expect them to when they originally were working.
Because most of these toys just have little speakers on them. So you cut those speaker wires, and instead of having a speaker, you put an 1/8 inch jack so that you can plug in an 1/8 inch plug and then source it out to a mixing board or your computer or whatever you want to record to sample it, so that it's the best possible quality audio being sent out to whatever you want to use.
Electrical connector, an electromechanical device used to join electrical conductors and create an electrical circuit. The connection may be removable, require a tool for assembly and removal, or serve as a permanent electrical joint between 2 points. Thousands of configurations of connectors are manufactured for power, data, and audio-visual applications.
Well, if you're sampling it inside of your computer, you can record it straight into your computer from a 3.5 jack. And once you have maybe 2 or 3 of these toys that have, 3 or 4 bends each on them, you can hook those all into one mixing board and then really start playing around and adding reverb effects and whatever you really want to create some really interesting sounds.
There we go. I think he's saying late caller on the way. The batteries might be kind of dying too. There's the lead plug. See that's what's on the other side of that black thing. It's just like a tiny custom-made chip and then all the leads coming out. So that is what the blob actually is. It's more orderly than it seems. This is a piece of metal, and it has it's on a springy thing, and so both of these are connected. So two sides of a circle are connected. If you look at where it relates to here, that means that that's probably a ground, and it's always connected either that, or that.
Whatever it's do, it's like messing things up and in a slow, hypnotic way. And I'm gonna have to figure out how to make music with these. And they're kind of like these slow loops. Yeah, I have 4 of them. I connected an on-off switch to each of them, and it'll kind of play like some weird, jumbled up song that's kind of, kind of major, kind of minor, kind of weird and dissonant, and it's kind of slow and lethargic and really weird, and it's like I don't really know what's going on, but I guess that makes sense that it would be slower if it's some effect due to resistance.
It was one of the first bends that I did, and it didn't last very long after it was made, but I was able to sample the sounds that I did make. I still kind of am chasing those sounds. Again, I haven't made sounds as cool that touched me as deeply as the Pink microphone did. So hopefully someday I'll find something that I can manipulate to make the noises that I really enjoy like that.
So this is also a Reed Ghazala thing. I mean, all these are, you can trace back to him, but like finding a single thing and then looking for other points with which it will react. Got it. Okay, cool.
I found some bends, 4 or 5 of them, and initially like I wanted to just wire them up and then also test to see if maybe a component in between might, do something else.
It's a very difficult soldering position. Joe is 1-0 on his circuit bends this month, not having a very good week. And the bend is successful. It's not pretty, but it has worked. A little golf clap. And a lot of times they say you're supposed to, or Reed Ghazala says you're supposed to activate it. And make it do what it's supposed to do. And then you bend from there. If you can make it make a sound that it normally would be making, and then you mess with it while it's making that sound. sometimes that can be really annoying.
Another pretty important thing we did was fucking write down our bends on notebooks. And that way, like, you get so excited in the moment and you're like, I care so much about this right now. But then we gotta go back to work, so I'm probably gonna forget these bends. So we have a little map of the circuit.
So I'm gonna take some photos here, like I do every time.
Yeah, we can pretend.
Hey man, I went rogue. I was trying to, it was like the parkour of bending. And sometimes you fall.
Transistor, a semiconductor device used to amplify or switch electronic signals and electrical power. Transistors are commonly used in digital circuits as electronic switches, which can be either in an on or off state.
Installing some banana jacks with pretty colors.
Oh, that's the one I wanted.
I can, combine them with these. Each one of these jacks goes to one point. So I'll have one and then I'll have a bunch branching out, and I can quickly move the plug from one to the other, and maybe you can actually put one on top.
Oh, interesting.
And it's colorful and fun. You see wires hanging out and stuff.
And that is the negative end. The red is on the positive end of the capacitor here, which is a 100 microfarad capacitor. It's pretty hefty, at least for this thing. And then negative is going to wherever, but specifically to right there, I believe. Alright, I'm liking this band. Might be good for a button on here.
And yeah, the time flew by this week because this shit's legit, and we just sat here and forgot about the world and just got into the world of electronics, and that's a great thing.
This is not a circuit band thing. It's like a... Who made these? There's a guy that makes these at a workshop. So the Tocante.
The Tocante.
The Tocante.
We've got the Leaps Phonics Pond, and today I'm gonna sample through the line out of the jack that I've installed. I'll email this to myself to get into the phone, or use a phone cable, and into my preferred music tracker software, Pixie Tracker, to give it a little bit of chiptune flair, and I'll build the track there. So chop it down so it's just one cycle, get to a loopable point. The loops themselves are out of tune, so to speak, or a better way to say would be that they're microtonal, which is to say that they're kind of in between the cracks of the keyboard. So the Western scale that we're used to doesn't subdivide pitches quite down that far, so it's kind of in between the pitches of what we're used to. Onto the right tempo, still getting cut off. I want to integrate these loops with other instruments, I'm going to either have to tune up or down the instruments or digitally do that to the audio from the loop. What I will do is try to pitch down or up the loop to match the other sounds I want in it. So I'll audition other sounds and then I'll try to get it in tune. Go back to the loop and then I'm able to change the pitch of it. I'm going to pitch it down. That sounds decent. I find it challenging to use the bends that I've found because these loops just sound really weird. Not anything that I would ever intentionally come up with. That second kick in there for the flavor. Can be kind of challenging working with circuit bent sounds because they're unpredictable. Doesn't seem to be exactly the same each time that you record it. I've learned new methods to make music along the way, and it's cool to use the circuit bent sounds in all sorts of different ways. Circuit bending, it's not just one thing. It's really just this crazy other world, this sinkhole that you're gonna just find yourself in. That could be good. There are no rules, you know. The toy's dying, it has a limited life, and then it changes every time. You know, it's just a cool way to embrace the randomness. For me, like, there are always parameters and limits that inspire creativity and just make you work harder within. What was with that? Oh.
This is like a broken reel-to-reel player. I can actually pull this up. So I'm just taking that output and putting it into here. And there's no tape in it. It's messed up in a way that it makes this noise. And when you start to alter the volume, it'll start to change its timbre. So it's like a really nice kind of a drone toy that it can sort of ride and combine with other things. This is like a kind of a crappy multi-effects guitar pedal, and I put it in feedback with the rest of in the amp, so the output is going into the input and vice versa.
I grew up playing piano, and then one day I saw like fucking guitarists, electric guitarists with pedals, and I realized like, damn, I gotta learn synthesis, you know, to get on those people's levels where they're unlocking all this stuff. That's kind of what I want circuit bending to do for me.
Nice to get this kind of really stony.
Yeah, totally.
So I can take my broken tape player here, just do some other sounds along with it.
I mean, the wireless revolution that Steve Jobs wants is still far away, but it is getting closer. But it's interesting to see that it's still a lot of stuff relies on that technology. And
You can also do stuff with like guitar pedals. This is actually kind of a nice guitar pedal that I ruined by circumventing it. I didn't ruin it. I improved it. But it does these really nice, all by itself. It'll do this.
Everything in our life, in one way or another, is benefiting from a circuit board in some way. So the most simple things to some of the most sophisticated things that we do are all based on some sort of electrical circuit.
It's a huge industry that probably does already have, people that are even sometimes on the radio that we know about that mess with this kind of stuff. But I think it's just going to even get potentially more into the mainstream, or just the knowledge will grow, which I hope the documentary will do, because even if you're not artistic, it is just a cool thing to know how stuff works, basically. And this helps you gauge how a lot of our electronics work.
I just put it in feedback with the rest of and they start interacting with each other. So I have a certain measure of control, but there's also, an aspect of this that I don't have. They kind of do what they want sometimes, and I can suggest certain things that they should do. And sometimes they'll do that, and sometimes not. So it's almost like kind of a collaboration or a cooperation, I guess. Right. So this is the kind of thing that I've been getting into in terms of performance, and my circuit bend stuff kind of goes along with that, and gets mixed into the mix.
And for the most part, I would say 90% of the population has absolutely no clue how any of this stuff works. And it's not like this technology is going anywhere. It's only going to get more sophisticated, and more things in our life are going to be completely controlled by electricity flowing through it.
Eventually, I don't see it as creating the super instrument or the super circuit or whatever. I embrace kind of getting into the nitty gritty of these little things, these little entities. And I kind of want to not so much I want to have more intent with it, so that I'm expanding the capabilities of something. And there's a lot of sound, a lot of different things that you could do, a lot of sounds that can be harvested from, for example, things that are unstable, things that are random and unstable.
I mean, definitely more of a analog hybrid with wires and stuff, because it would be interesting to see how, I guess, the more options the instrument has, the more it can, in theory, create. That's kind of, I think, would be my best bet, would just be getting a lot of electric keyboards and then modular synths and stuff like that, and just stacking them up, and then kind of plugging in, plugging out, kind of what they're doing a lot now still, but it's just more already built, So doing the building, you could really find potentially sounds that no one's heard before. I mean,
resolutely, she pushed away the nagging memories of her parents' car hurtling off the side of the cliff. She pushed the thought away from her and turned to Mark. Love me. Love me. I do, darling.
That whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life.
saying circuit bending in 50 years is probably going to be just as cool as it is now, except I'm looking at toys that I played with 20 years ago, and I'm just now educating myself on how those things are. So the kids that are playing with the sophisticated computer toys that are coming out nowadays may someday be shopping for the 20-year-old laptop computer or tablet that they're using now to tear that apart and manipulate it in some way.
I could see a lot of stuff being without cables and stuff, so it could almost be more of like film is today, when it's really set aside for like the auteurs who really want to like get in hard, and it'll set apart actually people that are really good at it, and then some that are just mediocre.
I'm sort of like trying to gain experience playing with these crazy unstable random toys, and eventually want to bring this knowledge to modifying Casio keyboards, making keyboards out of weird toys, maybe making my own custom keyboards.
Maybe save this one for later.
The circuit boards that exist on the toys for children nowadays are far more sophisticated than the toys that I'm manipulating when I buy them from a thrift store. So it's going to get interesting, to say the least.
This in 50 years will be like, there'll just be probably some pretty crazy inventions from people that just were going in deep and were like, whatever, I don't need to get with the times, because I know what that offers. Like, this is kind of like still in the dark, even though it's almost been bypassed on to the next one. But the people that are really going to be diving deep, they're going to be coming up with stuff that, probably a whole new tonal structures.
Shrinking them down from big things you would have on stands to like a pocket-sized keyboard that has everything that you want it to make, all kinds of music, and it's just big enough, it's tiny and efficient, and you go anywhere with it and make just all kinds of wacky music. And I want like hundreds of these. That's the long-term goal.
Probably replicas of remodulated things that are just like whole new instruments, I guess, whole new ways to play music. So yeah.
Like, if you don't make your own instrument, you're not going to be a good musician, basically.
yeah, definitely. Like, the people that are making their own things, will stand the test of time.
I believe that Louis and Baby Baron, when they worked on the soundtrack to Forbidden Planet, Louis Baron would make these crazy circuits, and he made all these oscillators himself. But a lot of the stuff they made was really unstable, and they would make noise for a certain amount of time, and then they would just die. I have to find the scholarship on this. I'm not sure if this might be bullshit, but I like the idea that they began to sort of regard their little electronic mechanisms as kind of like little living beings. They would kind of come into being and live a little bit, and then they would destroy themselves. They would die because they really weren't built correctly, and they would just eventually blow up. But they would record them as they were doing them.
So circuit bending is a fun experience. It really is a fascinating way to kind of just open up a piece of electronics and enjoy an afternoon kind of playing with this stuff.
So just kind of like knowing how to make fire, this is kind of like a modern way of knowing how to make fire, of that kind of survival skill, because now that we're not living in caves, now that we're not living out there, we have this silicon-based landscape. And so, this is like us sort of, learning the lay of the land, the new land.
It's really just good, harmless fun, and a great way to learn about the stuff that's just all around us and makes our lives, magical on a day-to-day basis. So it's a fun way to learn how the magic trick kind of works.
Because it's fun and it's rewarding, and to put in work and to make something cool and unique.
So I kind of like that idea, and circuit bending maybe kind of echoes that a little bit. That it is kind of like you're kind of interfering with a sort of a life cycle. and a lot of times the bands will kind of, they'll shorten the life of whatever it is. So it is in many ways kind of a live fast, die young approach to electronics. But the rewards are great, right? So there you go.